Okay, let me have some coffee. So this isn't very nice, but needs to be done. So this is our second video. So we're following on from the first about the allegations to do with Mike Bickle. So just a quick recap. So this is the second video. So kind of in the first, I gave a prophetic warning, which was to do with what God showed me in the past that would happen back then and is now happening. So kind of I broke it down into several things. So a perfect storm, kind of a perfect storm in the church as well as in the world. The whole idea is to get us back in relationship with Jesus, basically. It's about our heart being connected to his, and it's about understanding who we are and the authority we have in him in that heart relationship. It all kind of goes together as a package, and that some of this confusion that's coming, this, I call it paralysis as well as confusion. So it's God's way of allowing judgments to come on the earth and in the church, because particularly for the church, we need to, God basically, in the whole kingdom of God thing, which I hope you understand, his purposes are worked out through the church. So the church has to get back to that place we just mentioned for his purposes to be worked out. So that's why there's judgment, or seemingly judgment. I mean, judgment's a big concept. I wouldn't necessarily think when I say that, I'm thinking it's not the incorrect term, but I'm also thinking most of you won't understand what that means. It doesn't really mean what you think it means. Anyway, and that part of that God said to me was like, there would be ministries, and obviously including that would be leaders and streams and denominations that would just disappear overnight. And not necessarily disappear, though some would, but like they would continue on, but effectively their ministry's gone. So the big question is that going to happen with IHOP? I personally don't think so. As I said in the video, I don't think, I mean, I wasn't shown this included IHOP. I think I know a ministry or two who it will include, so I can, bit of an exclusive if you want to put it like that. So I saw literally one of these ministries being taken out through a earthquake and a tsunami. I'm not entirely sure that's not prophetic, because it was a bit of a mad vision. But I basically saw a tsunami happening, and then earthquake, so the earth was split in this region, and basically these demons came out, and basically the tsunami killed the demons as they were coming out of this fracture in the earth. And that was a particular place. Part of that was to basically remove one of these church networks. So when you see that happening, you know, so when I say these things are going to get worse, I'm saying this because they're going to get worse. Mike Bickle, I wouldn't want to comment. Okay, so we've not really dealt with the allegations. So to me, it doesn't matter if I'm connected with IHOP or not, or whatever. There's a proper biblical process, and there's no point saying anything till that process happens. Now, in my mind, within a leadership team, things have to stay within the leadership team. Just because that's how effectively Ephesians 4 ministry works. The leaders lead, and the rest of the church, what I call the followership, so the leadership and the followership, that's a term I invented up, by the way, but like, I think we need to, when we talk about these leadership issues, think of not just leadership, but followership, because it does exist. Leaders have certain responsibilities and functions, and followership don't. So not everything that happens within the leadership should be known in the followership. Now, what I'm definitely not saying, so don't quote me on this, is that stuff needs to be hidden. All this allegations need to come out of the open, but the process in doing them needs to be within the leadership team. It needs to be proper and it needs to be biblical. Actually, I don't see that happening now because of what certain people have done, and I will rebuke them publicly in a future video because I think someone has to, and they need rebuking, so I'll do it. I'm quite happy to do that. Anyway, so just let that process work out. So I think there are two important messages to learn. One's to do with the allegations and one's to do with our handling of those allegations. I will talk a bit more about the leadership thing in a bit. What else should I say? Let's deal with the Mike Bickle situation. So I think from now on, whatever's happened and whatever happens in future and whatever happens with any sort of conclusion to these allegations, it's obvious to me, I mean, you don't have to be a prophet to say this, which I'm not, by the way. Don't say this prophet said that, but like, it's just like Mike Bickle's ministry in the earth is never going to be as it was before these allegations, no matter what happens. I think that's the first thing to consider. That kind of goes without saying. Now, I think for Mike himself, I have two thoughts. So that's kind of one thought, really. So I think one of the key things that Mike does teach, and he's a very good teacher. So I think one of them is, we'll come on to this in a bit actually, which is about does when we have a leader like this who potentially might fall, I'm not concluding whatever, but I am saying, like, certainly the trust in him as a leader is never going to be the same. His ministry is never going to be the same, even if these allegations are proved to be totally false anyway. But each of us, leaders and followers, have the whole point of the whole thing, everything, is why we were created, or what I call creational mandate. So we were created for God and to be in relationship with God. So that's one of the things Mike teaches, and that's very good. That teaching is very good. And again, whatever happens doesn't matter. It doesn't nullify the gift in the giver, because the gift is from God. Therefore, part of the gift in the giver is from the giver, who is God. So let's not throw the baby out with the bathwater. But anyway, I found that very good, and I can personally relate to that. So it doesn't matter if we're whoever we are. The whole point to everything is we're created for a relationship with God. So the point is that we all have to be accountable. So that's the worst thing for Mike. The allegations don't matter. Mike has to account for what he's done, and as a leader, and there's responsibilities and authority to go with that before God, because that's the main thing. So the worst thing for Mike is if he has done anything wrong, then that's the worst thing that can happen. And as a leader, the public humiliation is immense. And we will get people saying everything he ever taught was null and void. And I think if that was me personally, I'd find that the worst thing to take. The second thing is Mike also preached the difference between that creational mandate that each of us have and actually the fact we're all given the task of doing the kingdom of God. So again, if anything's found to be true, then Mike's not only failed at the big thing, he's failed at the second big thing, which is his job as a leader. And it doesn't get worse than that. It doesn't get worse than the first thing, other than the second thing failing as well as the first thing, and then the third and the fourth, and the just like on top of it. What you understand is it doesn't matter now. It's pretty bad for Mike Bickle. Okay. Don't take this as given. Don't be surprised. Right, let me rephrase this. God spoke to me recently, very recently, and told me some of these people that are going to fall will be restored to their ministry. And obviously that would mean at the appropriate time. So I'm not saying that would be Mike Bickle, but it will be some people. So I have I've got something to say about that. I'll probably say it later. And that's as much as I want to deal with the allegations. So I've dealt with the overall prophetic work. I've dealt with the actual allegations. What should I deal with next? Because there's lots to deal with. I'm stuck between two things. Let's teach a not prophetic warning, but a warning for the church. No, sorry, actually, that there is a teaching that needs to be taught for the church in regards to leadership, but there's teaching that needs to be taught for leaders. So whatever it is, the sexual sin and the having sex with someone who you're not married to, or having any kind of sexual interactivity, which can be outside the church, not for us, has been that much of a big deal, but seems to have this big thing. It's the big thing of the effect it has, the way we manage it, the way it happens, and kind of the reason why it's so serious. Now, I think I do need to question something to do with its seriousness. Now, what I don't want to do is to diminish its seriousness, but we have to realise Moses killed a man, David committed adultery and then killed a man by being deceitful and manipulative. Could just go on, really. Judas in particular betrayed Jesus. Paul criticised Peter for basically doing whatever Peter did. I don't think we really understand that, but what Paul was criticising Peter for doing wasn't the act of what he did, but in doing the act he made it out. He compromised the gospel message to the Gentiles by only refusing to eat with them and doing whatever he did in terms of fear. So the sin of Peter's, according to Paul, wasn't the eating, it was the things behind it, and the fear, and the not wanting to look bad in front of certain people, which is fear of man, really, which is one of probably the most divisive thing in church, probably along with the leader committing adultery. But the point is, obviously, David, if any leader is found to be in sexual sin, and David was, and he didn't lose his He didn't lose his calling. He wasn't made king. Now, are things different today? I think yes. But I think there's a wider discussion that needs to be had. And I'm actually not the one to have that discussion or to say anything. But I think it's something that needs to happen with the right people. Clearly, there are precedents for things that happened back then that don't happen now, and there are precedents for why they don't happen now and they did back then. It's a complex conversation, but I think it's a conversation we need to have. Now, as far as leadership goes, I'm just this is my personal context. So I'm aware from what words have been given to me that I might one day have a mega ministry, and I'm not saying that to say anything, because at the moment, who cares? I certainly don't care, but I have thought about certain things. So the biblical example here of a leader falling from the grace of God and sinning is probably the one person who shouldn't be in the biblical example doing this, because he was too wise to, which is Solomon. So the three things was like women, and his lust for women and sexual relationships and the whole cabal of that, power, and money. And he pretty much fell for all three. But those are the three as leaders we need to be watchful for. So I'm always watchful for that. And I'm always watchful for the realization that as a man, the easiest thing for you to do is to fall into sexual sin. Because it's part of the fall. It's part of the... I mean, it was there before the fall, sort of Adam's longing for his wife above everything else. And obviously Adam didn't have the temptation that there were other women to choose from. So it's a particular male weakness that women don't have. And the reason I said I'm well aware that I might be in a position sort of similar to Mike Bickle's, is having thought about these things, that sort of thing, sexual sin, scares me to death. It makes me quite anxious in some ways and makes me fairly fearful, but not fearful, but because I think I know better than not be fearful of it. But in Mike's position, I would only survive that temptation by the grace of God. I couldn't survive it within myself because I'm a man. So what I'm talking about here is particular problems that aren't addressed by the fellowship in the church, and then by the leadership with the fellowship in the church and the leadership outside the fellowship. Like, we basically need to protect our leaders. And I think what we're beginning to see is where even sexual sin there's an accusation of sexual sin, and it's proved to be false. It creates great damage. So we need to not put ourselves in the situations where we will be tempted to sexually sin, because once we do, then we will commit adultery. We will commit the sin of sexual sin. I'm saying that from my context. So in the last couple of years, been aware of one of the churches where I have been to, where the major leader has created or has had a adulterous affair, and then it's been revealed he's had another one. I was speaking to someone randomly about something and thinking about something, and God gave me a word that there would be sexual sin in his church. It just seems to be a common occurrence at the moment. So the guy who's... So I had that word recently, and it was fairly serious. Like, you don't want to bring it, you don't certainly want to get it as a leader, but, happens sometimes. And I thought, great, thanks God. But there you go, it is what it is. But the leader whose church I used to be in, I wasn't surprised. Again, God told me he was going to have an affair. I actually think God will restore him, if you know who I'm talking about. So prophetic things to me, I kind of observe the results. So obviously you don't expect to hear from God, oh, he'll have an affair, but I'm like, I wasn't surprised because of the makeup of the church. Again, a lot of people are saying stuff in videos which I think is quite stupid. So one guy's talking about mega churches. Why do we have these mega churches? Why do we have these one-man ministries? Well, Paul, Peter, John, Jesus, David, Moses. It's like, no, Moses led an entire nation. It's like, why do we have these? Well, the obvious reasons why we have these. We don't need to discuss that. So we don't need to be saying stupid things about that because we will have them in the future. It's not the having them that's the problem. It's the issue of how do we protect leaders in sexual sin. So I think particularly with my experience, so these are the things I've seen. So as a church, we need to stop putting men up on a pedestal and we need to put Jesus up on a pedestal. So I'm well aware that any leader can just fall with sexual sin because I don't believe that I can pass that test myself without the grace of God and without protection from the other people in the church. I mean, it's a difficult subject, but I think in the end, people who are responsible and around leaders, both leaders and followers, need to come together now and have these conversations. Because it's having actual conversations about protecting a leader and then protecting the leader is the only way this will stop happening. And I just don't understand why it isn't a thing and isn't a big deal. So there's certain reasons why it's happened. So I'm going to lay out what I think in the next video, actually. What else do I want to say? I want to say a lot of things. I'll probably repeat. So I've got a few minutes to say a few things. And then, so we'll continue in the next video and I'll talk about what I've started to talk about here, which is how we protect and the things I've seen. I want to strongly rebuke anyone who's doing this. So why am I doing it? Because I have something to say. So people are contradicting themselves. So I've got to actually rebuke the people on YouTube who are going on YouTube. And I understand this. You can make a lot of money out of YouTube. And the way to do it is by people subscribing, liking, if this is a delicate subject, like promoting your products, it's a scandal. So if you're making a video and you're promoting your products and you're promoting sponsorship and you're promoting things that are actually getting you money, please subscribe, please comment. So you're making money out of these allegations. That's a sin in itself. That to me is absolutely disgusting. So can people please stop doing that? When they see people doing it, saying you shouldn't be doing that. I've heard the same verse given on every video I've seen, which is ridiculous. So, and then I've heard people saying, what we need to not be is to gossip salaciously about this, and then they're gossiping salaciously about this. So unless you've actually got something to say, like this, don't say anything, it's obvious. That would be my point. I would like to rebuke the people who came into the knowledge of these allegations and rebuking them openly because they went outside the biblical mandate of what they should have done, and they published a letter, and I'll talk about that. I'll talk about some other things, so that will be in the next video.